You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're listening to Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Locked On Mets is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And if you are watching on YouTube, today is our last audio-only podcast as I complete my Mets road trip, checking out the minor leagues. I'll be back home tomorrow giving you your normal YouTube content. But we have a lot to discuss today. The Mets swept a doubleheader against the Atlanta Braves to get right back in this series. Now they have a chance to win the series in the series finale with Tylor Megill on the mound on Wednesday. So in the first segment, I'm going to talk about Game 1 of the doubleheader. In segment 2, I'll talk about Game 2, where Carrasco was absolutely brilliant. And then we'll close out the show today talking about my experience going to the Syracuse Mets game tonight and just capping off this road trip I've been on altogether. Before we get to any of that, though, I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor and where I have a piece going up today, if you want to go to Just Baseball, talking about Tylor Megill. It's a deep dive into why Megill has been so successful this year. I'm sure I'll be talking about that on tomorrow's show after we see Megill pitch. But if you want to read my thoughts on Megill, you can check that out as well. Now, in Game 1 of the doubleheader today, Travis Jankowski was the leadoff batter. And I think I saw some people before the game kind of questioning Buck Showalter on that. Why is Jankowski leading off? Especially when you have the universal DH, you can bat him ninth and have him as, that second leadoff man. Well, you know what? Jankowski proved everybody wrong. He scored 3 runs in this game. He was an absolute spark plug. It really is great to see all of the guys that got to keep a roster spot by the Mets cutting Robinson Cano thrive in this series. Jankowski has been big. Louis Guillorme has been big. Dom Smith came through in Game 2 with a huge 2-run RBI double. So we're just seeing a little bit from everybody. This is a team that just feels like all the pieces fit together really nicely. And Jankowski, a big part of this game, getting that leadoff hit. He then moved to second when Francisco Lindor was hit by a pitch on the foot. Then Pete Alonso saw the wide open gap at second base. He said, "Thank you very much, RBI situation. Let me just poke one through." Gets Jankowski home. Then Eduardo Escobar rips one into right field as well. That drove in Lindor. The Mets are sitting 2-0 at the end of the first inning. And that's what you love about this team, that they continue to just jump out and get those early leads. They did it again in Game 2. So that is fantastic to see. They added to that lead in the second. You had Guillorme draw a walk. Jankowski drew a walk. Those 2 walks sandwiched a bunt pop out by Tomas Nido. Mark Canha moved the runners over. You had 2 in scoring position for Lindor. He hits a soft grounder, is able to beat it out. That allows 1 run to score. Then Pete Alonso drove in another with a single, and suddenly the Mets had a 4-0 lead. In the 4th inning, they tacked on yet another run. Travis Jankowski scored his 3rd of the day. He traded places with Tomas Nido on a force out. Then he stole second and advanced to third on a bad throw. And then Mark Canha, situational hitting, sacrifice fly. And the Mets just continue to do things like that. They just find a way to put runs on the board. They're not even hitting a lot of home runs, yet they keep winning because of situational hitting, good base running, good fundies, as Keith Hernandez would say. David Peterson looked really solid in this start for the most part. Gave up an early run on a sacrifice fly, but really all the damage came in the 5th inning. He was so close to leaving with just another great outing. But it's really his own fault, because in that 5th inning, there was a runner on first with 1 out. He gets a tailor-made comebacker for a double play. Softly hit, but it would have been perfect. Even though Ozzie Albies can fly, the Mets turned that double play 9 times out of 10. Unfortunately, this was the time they didn't, as Peterson took his eye off it and never goes into his glove. Both runners are safe, and then, of course, Matt Olson comes up next and cashes in everything, hitting a 3-run homer. And that just changes your day. Also, a little diatribe, a pet peeve of mine. I hate that a pitcher's error can count as an unearned run. In my opinion, if you're a pitcher and you can't field your position, your statistics should not benefit from your inability to field your position. No offense to David Peterson, but he's got to make that play. And the fact that one of those runs goes in as an unearned run when the inning was only prolonged because he couldn't turn the double play himself, and then he gives up the 3-run homer, in my opinion, it should have been 4 earned runs against David Peterson. That's just something that's always bothered me. That, and when there's a fly ball in the outfield and the outfielder loses it in the sun, so he doesn't touch it, and it counts as a hit. That's another thing that drives me nuts when it comes to official scoring. We saw Lindor on Friday night get a hit on a pop-up to Gene Segura where it just barely got into the outfield, and Segura didn't see it, and it just drops, and because it doesn't touch him, hit. Sorry for that whole diatribe there. I told you, it's little things like that can frustrate me at times. But you look at Peterson's day altogether, he gave the Mets 5 innings, tough to go back and forth from Syracuse to the big league club. Gave up those 4 runs, 3 of them earned, 4 hits, 6 strikeouts, 3 walks. But it put the Mets in this position where it was a 5-4 game at the end of the 5th inning. And as I talked about on yesterday's show, the Mets needed to grab the first one. Because if they didn't, they would have been behind the 8 ball where the Braves would be up 2-0 in the series. And the last thing you want is for this Braves team to beat you at home and change the momentum of their season. The Mets had to get that first game. They had to. And they didn't get any more runs, so it came down to the bullpen, and the high leverage arms got the job done. Adam Ottavino struck out 2 in a scoreless inning. Drew Smith, though, just continues to be the unsung hero of this team. 2 scoreless innings. He now has 10 games pitched without allowing a run, 15 strikeouts, and 11 and a third. He has 7 holds on the season, so that shows you the high leverage situations he's been pitching in and how he's been thriving in those situations. And in a game where you really had to trust your bullpen, knowing also that if you didn't get this one, you're in complete just trouble in game 2 with your bullpen taxed. To give you 2 innings in that spot to shorten the game and allow Edwin Diaz to just come on for the 9th in a 1-run game and shut the door. Just fantastic job by Drew Smith. I mean, almost the MVP of the game just to come in and get those 6 outs when the Mets really needed him. And then Diaz, he looks like Mariners Diaz again. I mean, this guy looks completely lights out. He strikes out at least 2 batters every single time he's on the mound. The slider looks untouchable, and he's locating it. He's not walking a ton of batters. So I love what I'm seeing out of Diaz. And Drew Smith as well, that tandem at the back of the Mets bullpen. And Ottavino has been really good as well. So Trevor May ends up going on the IL. We talked about that a bit on yesterday's show. We'll see what happens with him. We'll see how his arm can heal. But right now, the high leverage guys, it's Ottavino, it's Smith, it's Diaz, it's Lugo. And to a certain extent, you have guys like Chasen Shreve and Joel Rodriguez getting big outs as well. But the Mets bullpen has been nails. They've just been great. So a huge win thanks to the bullpen in that game 1. That set up Carlos Carrasco to try to get the Mets ahead in the series in game 2. And boy, did he deliver. I want to talk about Carrasco's fantastic performance in just a minute. But whether she prefers a statement piece or everyday subtle elegance, BlueNile.com has fine jewelry for every mom this Mother's Day. Shop high-quality classic diamond earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, or gemstone pendant necklaces. Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. And when you commit to a piece, so does Blue Nile. They have guaranteed service and repair for life, and they also have the diamond price guarantee, where you can contact Blue Nile to compare a competitor's diamond against one of yours, and in most cases, they will meet or beat that price. This Mother's Day, give mom something she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Mets listeners get $50 off $500. This podcast exclusive is only good through Mother's Day, so again, use the code LOCKEDON, that's code LOCKEDON, plus every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace by going to BlueNile.com today. I think there's one stat that encapsulates everything you need to know about Game 2 of the Mets doubleheader against the Braves. Atlanta went 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position against Carlos Carrasco. That is how good this guy was. He gave up a leadoff base runner in each of the first 3 innings, worked around traffic all night long. Really, in every single inning but one, there was traffic on the bases against Carlos Carrasco. But he's a veteran pitcher, doesn't get fazed by it, executed his pitches, and got out and gave the Mets 8 scoreless innings. Just sensational. Absolutely sensational. Here's the guy that's going deeper into games than anyone right now. It's Carlos Carrasco. And when I just talked about the bullpen in Game 1, you knew how taxed they were. In Game 2, really it was Seth Lugo. That was the one high leverage reliever left out there. Chasen Shreve was the other one that could have maybe got some big outs, and Joely Rodriguez as well. But you're talking about a Braves lineup that is really righty heavy. And so there's a reason why Shreve and Rodriguez haven't been used, although Shreve is very good at getting righties out as well as lefties. So I think that he would have been an option, and he'll likely be the first option on the pen tomorrow. But to be able to get 8 out of Carrasco and just have him hand the ball to Lugo to close it out, it doesn't get better. And Lugo only threw 8 pitches, got a double play ball to close out the game. Another shutout for the Mets is, I think it's their 6th. I think it's the 6th or 7th, I believe 6th, shutout of the season for this pitching staff. We're really only a month into the season. That's remarkable. And look, again, I really do hate it to have to continue to reiterate things from the offseason. But how many episodes did I post about Carlos Carrasco having a bounce-back season where I was met with, no, he's terrible, no, he's washed, no, he can't do anything. This is why you don't give up on players based on 1 year, and you have to look at the context of their season. Last year, Carlos Carrasco was never healthy. He was never healthy. But if you look at the pitcher he was in Cleveland, this should not be surprising to you. What you're watching is a healthy Carlos Carrasco. It's that simple. It's not him suddenly having a breakout in his mid-30s. No, this is the guy he's been. He is a professional starting pitcher and a high-quality one. And that means that he knows in a spot like tonight, what does he got to do? He's got to throw strikes. 96 pitches, 68 strikes. Only 2 walks. That is a veteran knowing I need to give my team length. And even with the traffic on the bases, just continued to find a way. Execute. And it leads to another Mets win. And we could talk about the offense because it was good. I mentioned earlier, Dominic Smith got the clutch hit, had a RBI double that scored 2. Brandon Nimmo and Jeff McNeil both singled. And I was actually listening to this game. So you'd always learn something when you listen to Howie Rose and Wayne on the radio. I do love that that's an option for Mets fans. If you can't watch it, you have this great experience you can have go on in your head listening to a game. So I was listening to the Mets game while I was watching the Syracuse Mets game. And one of the things that they were talking about Jeff McNeil is he's done trying to hit home runs. Apparently there was one in Arizona where he thought he got all of it. He thought he was going to hit it 10 rows deep, and it didn't even make the warning track. And because of the way the baseball is flying or not flying this year, McNeil has decided he's back to being a slap hitter, and he's back to just finding holes. And you know what that means? That means that there's a damn good chance that he's going to contend for a batting title. And you know what? This might be the best version of Jeff McNeil. Because as much as we loved it in 2019, where in the second half he got a little bit pull happy and started leaning launch angle and hitting those home runs, and as much as it's great when a Jeff McNeil can run into a home run for you, his game is not that. His game is finding the holes. His game is drag bunts. His game is putting the ball on the ground and just finding that one spot where he can get on, or in a spot where there's a runner in scoring position, knowing that he has to lift it over the infield to get into the outfield to get a sacrifice fly or at least find a hole and end up getting on base himself and driving in a run. This is the best version of Jeff McNeil that we've seen in some time. I know I've done some deep dives on him. I think I'm going to write an article about Jeff McNeil for Just Baseball where I'm really going to go into the numbers and try to explain what we're seeing a little bit, because he has just been another one of these guys that's really just outperforming expectations. I said coming into the year that I thought McNeil was going to bounce back in a big way. I was very confident in him and Carrasco, but even I didn't imagine what we'd be seeing from both of these guys, the level that they're performing at is just it's remarkable. It's all-star caliber stuff from these guys. So it was really great to see. And then you had Pete Alonso finally get another home run. It's been a slow start to him when it comes to the long ball, so it's been good to see him heat up a bit. And also, thank you, Pete Alonso, because I have this thing where if I'm in a ballpark watching a game, I'm going to bet on a Pete Alonso home run prop. That's just what I do. And tonight, even though I wasn't at the Mets game, I was watching a baseball game, listening to the Mets game. I said, you know what? 5 minutes before the game, it's my last night in New York. Let's just throw a little action on it. And Pete Alonso has done just a great job helping me put a little gas money in the pocket as I'm about to drive back from Syracuse to LaGuardia to fly home after this minor league road trip. Tomorrow, it's going to be Tyler McGill versus Ian Anderson. The Mets have a chance to win this series. I said on yesterday's show, just get one of those two games in the doubleheader. They got them both. Now they're sitting pretty. They will not lose this series, so that streak can continue. And they got a good chance with the pitching matchup. Ian Anderson has not started off great this year, in the ERA over 4.5. The Mets bullpen is certainly taxed. 3 games in 24 hours, as Buck Showalter said in his press conference after the game. That's going to be very tough. They got Joely Rodriguez and Chasen Shreve ready to go. Edwin Diaz should be good. He can pitch in back-to-back days, and he had not thrown a couple days before coming into this game. His last game, I believe, was the no-no on Friday, so he should be fresh enough to get the last couple of outs if the Mets have a lead. But I think that they're going to be very cautious with how they use their bullpen. We've seen Buck Showalter in the past when he has a series that the Mets aren't going to lose in that last game, and he's got another big series coming up, he might be cautious. And there's a big series in Philly. I think they're thrilled that they got 2 games. And if the Mets aren't in position to win that game, you're going to see a lot of Trevor Williams and Adonis Medina to try to just get through it and advance things on to the Mets' trip over to Philly this weekend. But I want to tell you all about the last game of my little road trip here, as I got to check out Mark Vientos and the Syracuse Mets. So I will get to that in just a minute. But summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go, and Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on your family vacations. Throw them in your bags, in your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so you are fueled for your summer adventures. And the best part is Built Bars are healthy and delicious, so no more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bars, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com now and order. All Built Bars and Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that Built Bars are healthy and absolutely delicious. It's like eating a candy bar, and the Built Bar Puffs are just so crazy good. The first ever protein-infused marshmallows with crazy flavors like the banana cream pie and the churro. Who doesn't want a protein bar that tastes like a churro and only is 140 calories? Go to Built.com right now to get all of your favorites and use the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. So when I showed up to watch the Syracuse Mets tonight, I was pleasantly surprised to see a pitcher I'm very familiar with on the mound for the Mets, and that was Thomas Szapucki. Went out there and didn't look great. I'll be completely honest. A lot of hard contact off of Szapucki in this one. He only gave up 3 runs, but in the first 2 innings, got bailed out with a couple of really good double play balls turned by his defense. A lot of hard hit balls. As I said, and those were 2 really well-struck double play balls. One where I think it was Blankenhorn made a diving stop and a glove toss, and another where a play in the hole, I think it also was Blankenhorn, making a really good play on it. And those 2 double plays really helped him mitigate the damage. He actually also, since I'm mentioning Blankenhorn, when Eric Orz was on the mound later, Blankenhorn had a diving catch. So he was kind of all over the place defensively over at second in this game. But Szapucki, I just don't know if he's going to stick as a starter, and I wonder how much longer they keep running him out there. I know after this start, I think his ERA in the season was in the 4.5 range, so not terrible, but I look at Szapucki, and he's a guy with so much injury history. I just wonder if it'd be better to try to convert him into a left-handed reliever, because I think he is going to be tough on lefties, but it's just getting to the point where it's hard to consider him too much of a prospect, especially if you watched him tonight. The one thing I will say, though, is he did have a really big at-bat where he had been very frustrated in that final fourth inning that he pitched, and the bases were loaded. The guy before had gotten on where Zapucki thought he had a strike three called, and it was called a ball, and so he was really frustrated, and Bryson Stott comes up to the plate with the bases juiced, and of course Bryson Stott made the opening day roster for the Phillies, one of their top prospects, so a guy that is one of the tougher outs in a Triple-A game, and Thomas Zabucki struck him out with the bases loaded. That count went full too, so it was a really big pitch. Got that out, got to feel pretty good about himself as far as his outing overall, instead of one that could have gone even more sideways. But again, my overall impression of Zapucki is I just can't see him contributing to the Mets this year out of their starting rotation. I know he's on the 40. Actually, did they change that? Now I'm trying to think. He might have gotten removed from the 40. Let me do a quick check here on that. He might have been DFA'd at some point. Let me see. Buda, Lopez, Jake Reed. Zapucki is still on the 40. Jordan Yamamoto is maybe who I was thinking of. But again, he didn't look great in this one, so we'll see how his season progresses. Eric Orrs ends up giving up a run on a balk, but he was actually really impressive. He hit 2 hits, and they were sitting second and third when he had that balk, but he ends up striking out the next 3 batters to get out of that inning. So that was really impressive. This is a guy that has a chance to factor into the Mets bullpen this season. He has some pretty nasty stuff. So I liked what I saw from Orrs. Nick Plummer hit a 2-run homer, so that was the big highlight of the day. If you go to my Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan, you can see a highlight of that home run to deep center. And Mark Vientos was obviously the player that I wanted to check out, a guy that coming into the year I thought could really factor in as a DH for the Mets, and he just got off to a dreadful start in this game. I can't say he looked comfortable. He had a couple just kind of ugly at-bats with strikeouts, but he did go 1 for 3 with a walk, and did have a sharp single on that one hit. So we'll see if he can start to turn it around, but there was not much to see really of Vientos. And when you watch that team in Syracuse, it is a little bit fun because you're going to know a lot of the players. I mean, you got Patrick Mazeika catching, you got Travis Blankenhorn, as I already mentioned, playing second. You have Nick Plummer and Khalil Lee. Those are a couple of prospects that were in our Locked On Mets top 20. I believe both of them cracked the Just Baseball top 10 when it came to the Mets farm system. So there are some legitimate prospects outside of just Mark Vientos. And you can see Daniel Palka, who is an absolute mammoth of a man who's having a good season in Syracuse. He had a nice hit to start off his day, but that was it for Palka. But certainly a guy that I think will be with the Mets at some point this season when injuries inevitably pop up. But overall, I've had a blast. If you've seen me at one of the games and said hi, I appreciate it. Over the course of the last couple of days, Friday was so much fun checking out that game with Peter Apple and Armley from Just Baseball and getting to witness a Mets no-hitter. Certainly a memory that I won't soon forget, and a podcast I won't soon forget. For that to be my 800th podcast hosting Locked On Mets, to be celebrating a no-hitter, it still kind of boggles my mind that all happened. And I just had a great time checking out the game in Brooklyn with Jordan Grossman, who does social media for us at Locked On Mets. It's good to see him in person. We've talked on countless Zooms and podcasts and phone calls and DMs on Twitter over the past couple of years. So it was good to finally see him in person and check out a game with them. And in Binghamton and Syracuse, it was good to see some of the top prospects in action. Later on this week, I'm gonna try to put together a video on YouTube breaking down some of the highlights that I have on my phone from the last couple of days, checking out those games. And I think the last thing I just want to say is, if you're in the New York area, whether you're close to Syracuse, Binghamton, Brooklyn, check out these minor league games, man. They're so much fun. It's such a cheap date. The tickets are not expensive. You can go on dollar beer nights and different specials they have. They got great stuff for the kids where kids can get on the field in between innings and run the bases after the games. And it's just a good environment, man. Support minor league baseball. It's a great way to spend an afternoon or a night checking out some kids try to make it in the big leagues, and you're going to see some prospects that could one day be starring on the New York Mets. And you can maybe get their autographs. You can maybe have some interactions with them. You can get a lot closer to the players at a minor league game than you're ever going to get at a major league game. And they're just a lot of fun. So I had a great road trip here. It was a challenging road trip when it came to producing Locked On Mets. And so because of that, I am very much looking forward to being home to close out the week here and give the last couple episodes. But overall, just a blast. So as always, though, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Locked On MLB is where you want to go to catch up on everything going on in Major League Baseball. You can follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.